Bien. Okay, what is up everybody? So my name is Ryan and today I have like very special live show which I am going to be doing. So basically how is working is every 10th episode of a live stream Q&A. What I do is I do like special episode where I don't really talk about coding. Now for today's episode, normally I is talking about very serious thing when I do 10th episode. But today what I wanted to do is talk about something hopefully is going to be funny, ridiculous, those kind of thing. And before I proceed, like I do have to admit I am not best at accents right now. I used to be much better and I have not had much time to prepare for accent, but what we are going to do shortly is a little bit of accent tag with kind of special twist to it. Anyways, before I begin that, let me just double check. So just make sure, anyone listening, can you let me know if audio quality is good? I would much appreciate this. And I will just get started with usual intro to show. So first and foremost, if you would like to support what I do here, you know rent is coming, I need to be able to pay, then what I would like, okay, audio is good, then please do consider support me on Google Plus while things still exists. Consider support on Facebook, Twitter, we have Slack channel is good as well. And consider subscribe or like button down below if you have left today. So anyways, that is basically it. I also want to give special shout out today. So what I was planning is, some people have been help me out on Patreon and give me very nice support. So originally I think to myself, great, I take money and I go buy lots of bottles of vodka. And then I realize maybe it's not so good to spend gift money from wonderful people on alcohol, so instead I get no microphone. So if audio quality is good, it is your fault essentially. Last week I have much trouble with audio recording quality. My little microphone is breaking all the time, is bullshit. So anyways, I just want to say very special thank you to Patreon supporter. You has helped me out very greatly. So first and foremost, I would like to thank A, Cameron, Graham, Hank, Kijak, Shoku, Sushil, and Trevor. So all of those people, thank you very much. You get me no microphone, I owe you much. Anyways, so let us get started. One moment, I get a little less comfortable because I'm currently squatting on stool. There we go, that is a little bit better. Also, you'll notice I have like kind of different setup than usual. I get whiteboard so we can like do a whiteboard thing, whatever, it's gonna be great. So let us get started. So what I wanted to do today is I wanted to do like accent tag because people is asking me when I do accent sometime, Ryan, can you do a whole episode with some kind of accent? So what I am going to do today, for like first half of episode, I will mostly not use my natural accent. Instead, I am going to do what is called accent tag. And the way that I am going to kind of pick these accent is based on a genetic DNA test I take a while ago, which is tell me about all my crazy background and family tree. Now, before I proceed, I just want people to understand that is most important. I show you different kind of genetic background, but is most important to understand that me and you watching show, we are all 100% human. Okay, 100% human. So I don't care what color you are, who your parents are, what gender you are, any of these things. We are all human. I treat you with respect. You treat me with respect. I don't want to hear dumb, stupid comments. Is intended to be funny, little storytelling things. So let's not have stupid opinion. Is okay, whatever your background is, whatever. just so we are clear on that right now. So anyways, so what I want to do is I basically give you a breakdown of percentages based on DNA result test. Now, a couple of things for starters, that this is approximate value, so it's not necessarily going to be exactly correct, and there is lots of like little thing which I don't really include. I am related to all kinds of different European people, but I think maybe what I do is I go through, and for each background I try to do accent related to family tree. So we'll see how it goes, and I will just do my best, but maybe it sounds stupid. Hopefully you'll get some laugh out of it. Okay, so first and foremost, coming in at 40%, and by the way, if you have not done DNA test, I strongly suggest it. It is very interesting result, and you might learn very surprising thing about your genetic background. So first thing we talk about, coming in at 40%, it is not come as big surprise at all. I am 40% approximately. I am 40%, maybe it's hard to read, Anglo Saxon. It is not big surprise. So if you have no idea what this means, so Anglo is referring to area around London, United Kingdom, Wales, that kind of thing as well. Saxon is referring to people from like Netherlands kind of, and is come together to form Anglo Saxon, which generally is around England. So quite specifically, I am mostly related to two kinds of Anglo Saxon. So for first Anglo Saxon, we have British. Now, I don't suppose that my British accent is quite up to snuff, but nevertheless, we should try. And that is my best attempt at English accent. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed. I used to be really good at English accent, but I have not practiced that much, but you know. And for other accent, this one is very funny to me. So I am also related to people from a place called Wales. It is like a part of England, and let me tell you, Welsh people have craziest accent I have ever heard. So I tell actual true story. So when I was young little gopnik, I was basically working in suit store, and one day guys come up to me, and is true story. He is great big man, maybe 150 kilogram. He is walk up to me, and he said to me, he is wearing kilt. Kilt is like dress but for men. He come up to me, and this is actually what he said to my face. I'm looking for a blazer to match my kilt. And when he say this to me, I think to myself, like, what, you make joke about me? You say funny? And then someone come up to me and say, no, that is just Welsh accent. I'm looking for a blazer to match my kilt. It was seriously weirdest accent I have ever heard in my life. So I'm also part Welsh, and that explains lots of problems. So that is basically mostly what I am for Anglo-Saxon makeup. And what we will look at next is coming in at 30%, and this is definitely where anger management problem is coming from. 30% Celt. So that is with hard C, Celt. So basically Celt is like, I want you to think Scotland, Ireland kind of area is lot of Celt blood, and in particular is two kinds of Celt that I am. So number one, I will do my best with this one, is Scottish. So my best Scottish accent is based off of 300 movie, but I do my best anyways. You see, old friend, I brought more soldiers than you did. I cannot understand when you talk like that. That is best Scottish accent I can do right now, but I have not had much time to practice. But a Scottish accent is quite a neat one. It's hard to get it pinned down properly, but I'll do the best I can. My favorite phrase is, I can't understand when you talk like that. So that's a Scottish accent. Not very good one. And then of course other kind of Celt that I'm related to. Unfortunately, I cannot do this accent without swearing a little bit. So if you're sensitive, you're going to probably be offended. But to do an Irish accent, I just have to lapse and do it and say, you'll do nothing, you fucking bastard. Why can't an Irishman count to 4? Because there's a bloody tree in the way. So that's my Irish accent. It's one that I've practiced for a long time. And that's about it for today. That's a nice little joke there, because they make the joke about Irish people not being able to count to 4 because there's a bloody tree in the way, and they can't say the TH sound. I remember that I had this substitute teacher who was Irish, and he was trying to tell us about this documentary called The Truthers. The Truth. Nobody in the class could understand what he was saying. Has anybody seen The Truthers? What he was trying to say is The Truthers, but with an Irish accent, they don't do the TH sound like that. So, anyways, a little bit inspired by Conor McGregor. You'll do nothing, you fucking bastard. That's me Irish accent. So this is basically takes up Celt. Definitely, this is where anger management problem is come from, Celtic blood. I remember lots of story in my lifetime, so I tell a quick story. It's not so funny, but you know, is interesting story about my character and heritage is kind of telling. So when I was little Gotnik, about 19 years old, which is legal drinking age in Canada, I go to bar with a couple of these different girls that I knew, and what we did is we play game. So all of us, me and the 3 girls, we had to play game to see who can get the most phone number. So of course I am playing against 3 attractive women, so I lose game, but I'm still pretty proud because I get 3 numbers at bar. You know, it's pretty good. Later on that night, really silly thing happened. So one of girls is go up to guy who she should not be talking to, guy like I am dressed up right now, Gotnik, you know. So she go up to him, start to have conversation with this guy, and then eventually he says stupid thing, she says stupid thing. She decide to do very stupid thing. She go up to this guy and she knee him. This is true story. It's very bad idea. I don't care, man, woman, you don't go up to people and throw knee, no matter what. So this guy who is big scary man, he push her. So without thinking, I get in front of guy and look at him in the face and I say to him, hey, cut that shit out. Now, when I tell this story, maybe sometimes people are thinking that I'm trying to sound like tough guy. Don't make mistake. When I say this to him, is automatic reaction. Automatic. My brain is thinking, oh shit, I am about to get the crap kicked out of me really bad, because I knew I would not be able to beat this guy in fight. But even so, I don't know what it is, but it's something about Celtic blood. When it's time to fight, I am there to fight. So it is fascinating to me, but I have other experience in life where a decision to run or fight happen, and for some reason I always find myself in situation where I am going to fight. So it is very bizarre, but I am just based on family knowledge. I know that this anger management problem and desire to fight is definitely come from Celtic Scottish blood. There's few people angrier and nicer at the same time than a Scotsman. Anyways, moving on. So this is number 2, Celt, kind of interesting one. Just check just check comment. I see I get a couple of left, so not bad. Okay, so coming in at 15%. So this one is actually a huge surprise to my family. We have no idea about this, but yeah, I write it out anyway. Okay, So we have, I give you a hint, is European, big surprise, but is probably not what you're thinking, is certainly not what I think, but is true. It turns out I'm part Jewish. Who'd have thought? So anyways, there isn't actually accent particular for European Jewish. I could just do a Jewish accent from New York or something like that, but I don't really have proper accent for this one here. Actually, my ancestors that are European Jewish is mostly Eastern European, like Slavic Jewish. So probably they are talking about like I am talking now, generalized Slavic accent. So this was a big surprise and is interesting because on one side of family also this next one come from same side of family, same area. So I talk about that in a moment. But yeah, who would have thought I am part Jewish? Awesome. When I discovered that, it made me a little bit happy because my favorite people, mostly actually when I think about it, are European Jewish heritage, like Richard Feynman and Carl Sagan are main guys. So big idols for me. So it's nice to know I might be partly related to them. Anyways, so next one, I have couple different ones that I condense into one because they are all kind of similar. So this one is just, I call Slav. I am about 15% Slav. Different kind of Slav. I have like Baltic Slav, Polish Slav, Moskva Russian Slav, that kind of thing. Belarus area, couple different kind of Slavic blood. So I am thinking this is probably where my expression come from. Is normal expression for Ryan. So anyways, is explained why face so rigid, and it feels like thousands of years of oppression just ground into face. So I think this is where this is coming from. Anyways, interesting little fact about these two. So they probably come from same ancestor. So I tell you a little true story. I don't know much about it, but I am never meeting my grandfather on my father's side, but I am knowing that he is originally from Poland. When I check DNA test, interesting thing is that Slavic blood and Jewish blood is come from same region, Slavic region. And one thing I know about my grandfather, who I never met, is that when he was about maybe 16 years old, he traveled to England and he joined Royal Air Force for England. And he is actually fight in the war. So I do not know this, but I actually suspect there is good chance that he traveled to England to escape Nazis, which is kind of funny situation. So anyways, this very interesting fellow, what he do is he fly in Liberator bomber. So his giant plane with 6 people inside of planes, 6 seats, or 6 people to fly huge plane. So when he is go for mission, he is fly over English Channel between England and France, and he is actually get shot down over English Channel. And out of 6 person in crew, only 2 survive. Obviously, he is one of them. And he's have to use parachute and jump out the plane. And then he's get captured by POW for a long time. And then eventually he end up in Canada with my grandmother. So it's kind of crazy story, but I would like to know more about it eventually. But there is good chance that grandfather was quite Jewish, and maybe Jewish and Slav, and maybe escaped from the region because of Nazis. So that is kind of funny little story. There is one more which I also include. I have many things like 0 to 5% certainty, so not high certainty with DNA test, but one which does pop out a little bit and is surprising because I am actually thinking when I am younger that I have more of this blood, but I don't have much blood at all. is German. Big surprise. About 3% German, maybe. You might say, ich bin ein wenig Deutsch. I do like to do the German accent. I like the way that it sounds. Und ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch. So this one was not too much of a surprise when we heard about it in the family. But it was a surprise to know that I am only about 3% German. So it is not so much as I thought before, but still there is a little bit of it. So that is basically all of different accent and genealogy from my family tree. If you are also a person who not have idea about parents, but no parents, you know, sleep around a lot, then maybe you consider getting DNA test as well, and maybe you do accent tag as well and tag me, because I think it's interesting to talk about without taking too seriously. So that is it for my ridiculous little accent tag. Hopefully it's not too bad. I know my accent not perfect. I do not actually try to do specific Russian accent, because I find with Russian accent I don't really know how to pin it down. Instead I do like kind of generalized Slavic accent, and this is actually what I am dressed up like today. Is Slavic douchebag, Gopnik. So anyways, that is Halloween costume. That is my little joke. Hopefully is a little bit entertaining, and from here on we go to Q&A. I don't know if I continue to do accent for a whole show. Maybe I get bored of it for a while, but for now I continue to do accent. So hopefully it's funny to you, and thank you for watching. Okay, I ran little commercial break just to be able to pay rent. One moment. I feel like idiot wearing big chain right now. Okay, so now we get to Q&A, but no one is asking me fucking questions. So what is going on? Come on, we got like 8 or 9 people. One of you must have question. I get one question from Andav. He asked, do I speak Ranglish in reference to like Russian English? I don't actually speak Russian very well. I say like couple swear words. Привет, меня зовут Ryan. I don't really know, but I don't speak English. I don't speak English very well. I mean, I don't speak Russian very well. What, you say we are listening and I am asking you, you need to ask question. It's Q&A. I have no question, so what do you want me to talk about? I'm not in a rush here. What is up, Radek? Okay, so no one is giving me questions, so soon I will have to randomly think of things to talk about, so I can't do that, but I prefer when people just ask questions. Okay, that is great. Okay, so question is from Aswin. I am trying to learn open source projects, but they are not following MVP pattern. I am not able to make a lot of sense. What should I do? Okay, so couple of ideas. So it depends a lot on project you are looking at. So what I do is I give you kind of like little tip to break down open source project and learn from. Okay, you know what? I'm actually just going to stop doing the accent because my mouth is getting tired. But this is how I normally talk, and yeah, I'm just going to do my normal accent for the rest of today. But anyways, hopefully that was entertaining. By the way, hopefully the whiteboard isn't too invisible. Oh yeah. Need to get a better eraser here. Okay, so the question was from Aswin. Let me just write it out really quickly. Okay, so I'm just going to paraphrase it. Aswin asks, oh, by the way, if the, I don't yet have a stand for my microphone, so if the sound of me typing is really, really obnoxious, do let me know. I will try to get a stand for it, but I'm hoping we can bear with it for at least 1 or 2 episodes here. Anyways, let's see what Aswin just asked here. So, Aswin says, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm getting tired of doing the accent. Maybe I can do accent a little bit later, but for now I stick to normal Canadian accent. So anyways, so question from Aswin. I copy paste. Okay, so Aswin asks, I am trying to learn from open source projects, but they are not following the MVP pattern. I'm not able to make a lot of sense. What should I do? So I'm going to give you kind of a tip which I actually used originally to understand ModelViewPresenter better. This is a general approach I use when I'm studying new open source code. So I'm going to assume that the projects you're looking at are still following separation of concerns. So let's look at it this way. So as long as the project follows separation of concerns, you should be able to map out what it does with some effort. So for starters, what exactly does separation of concerns mean? Just in short, so really what I want you to think of visually is separation of concerns is you take the whole functionality of your application. So let's say this horribly drawn square is the whole functionality of some application, and then you just pull it out into smaller pieces. Really just like that. So what I want you to think about is separation of concerns is really just if you have one file that does everything, then you break that file down into however many smaller parts you need, and each of these specific parts should generally do like the code within it should be related to something specific. So it could be user interface like a view, it could be logic like a presenter or a controller, it could be data storage like the model or a repository pattern. So here's what I would suggest for you, Aswin. So as long as you're looking at a project which does follow separation of concerns, how you can sort of break down what it does, and this is something I actually do, is go through each part of the application, each file, and look at what classes are in it, what methods are in it, what variables are in it, and try to determine, okay, what does this one file do? Then what you're going to do is you're going to go through the whole project, and any file which you look at it and maybe it has like APIs you're not used to, maybe it's structured in a different way, maybe it's like ModelView view model instead of ModelViewPresenter or something. What you want to do is you just want to try and break down the individual parts so you understand what they do. Now, I don't normally advocate that kind of itemized approach to learning, but when it comes to studying other people's architecture, I think it actually does help to really just get like a microscope almost and just go class by class, or even just look at one feature of the application. So we say, all right, so this weird thing here does that, this thing, and just try and like explain it in your own terms. If you do this for a while and you have some luck figuring out what each individual piece does, even if it doesn't necessarily correspond to like ModelViewPresenter, you can still get an idea of the individual parts, and then you can kind of start to reason about it. You can think about it and say, okay, well, this one does this one does this. And so that would be my suggestion for you, is to kind of go look at this new open source code. All of the files and APIs that you aren't familiar with, just try to really briefly summarize them. What I'll do is I'll clone the repository I want to learn from, and I'll type in my own comments in that cloned repository to try and explain the code that goes on. So hopefully that tip might help you a little bit. That's something that I like to do when I'm learning. I do study open source code quite a bit. That's actually most of what I spend my time looking at, as opposed to videos and articles. So I do advocate that approach. If you're looking at like some of the more recent ModelView view model architectures, you're going to run into an issue where they're using the observer pattern. And so how that basically works is that instead of the, say, the view, horribly, I don't have very good drawing skills, but instead of the view talking to the presenter and the presenter talking to the view, this thing might also, this is where I hate talking about this stuff, but, oops. It might also be talking to a view model. I don't follow strict view model, nor do I really follow strict ModelViewPresenter. I combine the two, but just for a simplified answer, a lot of architectures nowadays use the observer pattern for views. So instead of the presenter or the view, just let's ignore the presenter thing, actually that'll just confuse it. So instead of the view model telling the view what to do, the view will actually just, this is my little symbol to represent an observer relationship. So I draw a little eye, like an eye, a human eye, with my horrible drawing skills. And I draw a little arrow. Let me just clean this up a little. And so the view will actually just observe, sorry, the view model will publish data that the view observes. Now, that can be a little bit tricky if you're not familiar with the observer pattern. Check out my special video on RxJava if you want an explanation of what the observer pattern is. I explain it in the beginning. And that will help you with a lot of like view model and live data things if you're kind of confused on those. So I'm not sure if that's actually where you're hung up, but that would be my suggestion for that answer or question. Anyways, what else have we got? So, cool. I can actually, let's just kind of build on that one. Okay, so Amit asks, which should be used, MVP, MVC, or clean? So I'm going to try and, two things, Amit. Let me give you, I'm going to link you to a article I wrote. And the reason why I'm linking you to this article is I basically explain what MVP or MVC or MVVM actually is, like what the actual purpose of it, because you're asking me which should be used. Should I use A, B, or C? And so clean is like a way of building which clean architecture is like a more general way of building than MVP or MVC. So how I would kind of summarize it is like this. ModelView Presenter, sorry, ModelView Controller, ModelView Presenter, ModelView View Model, whichever one you use. Maybe the other one is a little bit easier. Whichever one you use, these are what are called, I'm going to call them front and architectures. So these are all front-end architectures. So why do I say that, and how is that different from, say, clean architecture? So a front-end architecture is fundamentally designed to handle inputs from some kind of user, which gets handled in the view, and wherever it would be here. I got too lazy to draw it. Oh, looks like the camera's a little out of focus. Yep. So we always have some kind of view, some kind of user interface thing going on. We always have, notice how we always have a model. So the term model kind of refers to any class that has to do with data storage and data access and just like I/O, in, out. So we could be talking a room database, we could be talking a simple little data model, like just a class, like a Kotlin data class if you're familiar. Those are all technically part of the model. So the model always has something to do with like data access and storage. And then we have, of course, the middleware class. So that's going to be controller, presenter. I argue it's kind of, I'm not going to go on that tangent today, but some people like to have a view model as like a logic center. I don't advise that, but I'm not saying don't use ModelViewPresenter. Just understand here's the thing. You're asking like, which should I use? Should I use this one? Should I use this one? Should I use this one? Should I use clean architecture? So what I would say to you, Amit, is don't approach this thinking I need to pick one architecture and I need to find out what the best architecture is and then just learn that. All architectures have different advantages and disadvantages. So actually, incidentally, I was chatting with one of my patrons who very kindly supported me, and we actually had a little discussion about ModelViewPresenter and ModelViewController, and sorry, ModelViewPresenter and ModelViewViewModel. And what I basically tried to explain to him, and the conclusion he was also had arrived at, is that there are benefits to doing, say, ModelViewViewModel in that you can have a many-to-one ratio of like views to view models, one-to-many of views to view models is more accurate. And you can kind of, well, you can kind of create like a very sort of reactive observer pattern-based view, which is really cool. The view listens to what the view model says. So the trade-off with that is that a lot of times you actually need like logic to coordinate the view a little bit. And so if you're following strict MVVM, the only thing you can actually do there is to like put the logic either in the view or in the view model. If you're putting logic in a view, I would argue that you're doing views wrong. If you're putting it in a view model, to me that thing becomes a little bit more than just what the word view model would describe it, but yeah. Whereas if you do ModelViewPresenter, or the way I do ModelViewPresenter, it's easy to write my views. It's easy to set up a lot of different things. I can tell my view exactly what to do, but the trade-off of that is that my presenter gets quite large. Now I actually like that because I like having one class which is very important to test, but people have different preferences. So what is Ryan rambling about, Amit? Basically the gist of it is try a couple different architectures. I would suggest you start with ModelViewPresenter for the only reason that it's easy to understand. ModelViewViewModel is quite a hole in a lot of ways because a lot of people do it differently, just like people do ModelViewPresenter differently. And for beginners, I really don't suggest ModelViewViewModel. I really don't. It's confusing, and it does require a bit of like a how can I say it, like a change in the way you think about applications. That being said, definitely learn about it. I use a view model in like all of my architectures. It's just that I don't follow ModelViewViewModel strictly. Now, the other part of this question is you asked about clean architecture. Maybe I'll do the other color. So what is clean? That's probably really hard to see, but what is clean architecture? So whereas the ones I talked about up here, ModelViewPresenter, ModelViewController, ModelViewViewModel, those are all front-end architectures. Fundamentally, they tell you how to build pretty much the front end of the application. Kind of the model gets into some back-end stuff, but yeah, that's basically what I want you to think about. Clean architecture is basically a way to build the entire application. So there's a couple specific things you need to do in order to call something a clean architecture. So I'm just going to get rid of this. So one of the easiest ways to think about clean architecture is to draw concentric circles. I'm horrible at drawing, so bear with me. That looks suggestive. Okay, so what does this really ugly diagram kind of mean? So I want you to think of this as different layers of an application. So on the outer layer we have, like, say UI or something like that. I'm not going to write all kinds of things, but we have like UI, and then we have, like, say, I would say middleware classes like presenters, controllers, even use cases, that kind of thing. And then as we head towards the center of the circle, we have like services. So I want you to think databases, REST adapters, that kind of thing. So the way that you do clean architecture in a nutshell, I can't explain the whole thing because there's a lot to it. But the dependencies of your application need to point in one direction. So let me riff just a bit on what I would suggest for clean architecture. So number one, if you want, I'll write them out actually. Let me write them in Notepad because that'll be a little bit quicker. So how Ryan suggests to achieve clean architecture. I'm going to keep this very practical, and I'm not going to go into big tangents about big words and theories. Let me just tell you how I do this. So number one, code to an interface most of the time. So what does code to an interface mean? This basically means, so let's say I'm talking from the view to the presenter or something like that. There's some exceptions, there's different opinions on this. I like to talk to all of my different classes, not all of them, a lot of them through interfaces or abstract classes. So the reason why you want to do this, so the benefit of coding to an interface most of the time, you don't always have to do it, is that it's easier to test different parts of your app and also swap out real implementations for fake/other real implementations. So what does this mean here? I'm saying if my presenter talks to interfaces for the view and the view model, but most importantly the model. If you don't talk to the view through an interface, assuming things aren't going to change too much, that's some people don't like to use interfaces as much as I do, but I just like to in general. So the reason why you want to use interfaces like that is because then you can basically use fakes. So let's say I want to test the front end of my application. I want to test like the presenter and the view. I want to test those two things, or maybe just the presenter for now. If the presenter talks to other objects via interfaces or abstract classes, then you can swap out fake versions of them. Let me just draw it really quickly again. Okay, so this other horrible diagram is model view presenter really quickly. So we've got the model, presenter or controller, and the view. And so if I want to know if my presenter or controller works properly, then all I need to do is actually put a fake view. However you do this, you can use a mocking framework. You can use a fake, which is like a test double that gets into unit testing and testing in general. And then I can also have a fake model. So what that allows me to do is I use the real presenter or controller, or I could have a fake presenter, whatever. Fake presenter if I want to test the view for whatever reason. So we're testing real things with fake things. If you use interfaces, that's a lot easier to do, is the point there. Let's see what else. So code to an interface. Follow separation of concerns really well. So I already explained what separation of concerns was earlier, just in 10 seconds. Separation of concerns is, instead of having one file that does 10 things, you have 10 files that do one thing. Now it's okay to have a file do multiple things as long as all of those things are related to each other. So what I'm saying here is it's okay to have one database manager file which handles all of the database interactions for one table, so to speak, one little database. You don't necessarily need to pull that out into 10 objects. But if you have a file which draws the user interface, calls to a database, checks permissions, and handles build logic, like a lot of people do in Android, a lot of people do all of that in activities, then you're not following separation of concerns. You're going to have a hard time testing your application. And in my experience, I don't really think it's worth it to do that. But with that being said, a lot of people have made a lot of money writing really poorly written applications, so I can't say too much. I'm always concerned about building really good quality things, so I'm not a pragmatist in that sense. Follow separation of concerns really well. And this is one of the most important ones. Dependencies should travel in one direction. This is a little more vague and theoretical. How could I put it? Let me put it this way. So let's say we have something like a presenter. I'll actually borrow a phrase from Robert Uncle Bob C. Martin. So one of the ways he kind of explained how you should think about dependencies is there's kind of like two types of objects you'll be writing in a clean architecture. Hopefully I'm not screwing this up too badly. So there are plug-ins and then things that are plugged into. So you can think of the view as basically a plug-in of the presenter, and you can actually kind of think of the model also as a plug-in of the presenter. We have that abstraction going on, so it gets a little hairy. But if we're thinking about backend, we would say that, let's say you have a use case or an interactor. The low-level services that this use case or interactor talks to, so the database, the network adapter, those are plug-ins, and they plug into a bigger, smarter object. So how I would kind of summarize this is if you have like a big, smart object, then how can I explain that properly? It should tell the simpler objects what to do. The simple objects should not tell the smart object what to do. Now, the simple objects can publish events. So you can use the observer pattern to listen for view events or responses from the model. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to not have a situation where your, say, model is calling back to a specific presenter. If your data layer or your model layer knows about, which is another way of saying has dependencies to your front end, that is breaking the one direction dependency principle. I can't actually remember what the hell. I don't think there is a strict principle here, but that's the gist of it. So I'm not sure if that was actually useful to anyone, but that's kind of my best off the top of my head explanation of clean architecture. So the thing about clean architecture is it applies to the whole application, whereas ModelViewPresenter, ModelViewController, and ModelViewViewModel, yes, the model kind of can refer to the whole application, but when you're building a ModelViewPresenter architecture, I want you to think of that as like your front end. So you've got different ways of building your front end, but you always want to be building your whole application in clean architecture if you can, if you would like to. So that'll be my answer there. All right, just going to run another quick commercial break. Oh, oi, blin, kurva match. It's too hot in tracksuit. Okay, we are live again. Robert says, witam. Cześć, jak się masz? I speak a little bit of Polish. Tak. Okay, I trying to do Polish accent. I only thing I remember about Polish accent is they say a lot when they talk. So, anyways, I should practice my Polish accent a little bit better. I had a teacher who was very Polish. Anyways, okay, so I'll talk about this a little bit. Okay, so Reddick asks, lately, hopefully you don't mind, hopefully you're a funny guy, I can imitate accent and have little jokes. So Reddick is asking me, lately I see that some guy on open source project do base presenter, extend view model. What do you think about this? So honestly, this is something I complain about a lot. So what is big? Let me just talk about issue. So why is good time to talk about this? Okay. Let me leave question up. Why is Ryan always complain about MVVM architecture? Why always complaining about this architecture? Is for a simple reason. Here is why I think. Here is why I complain. Let me pull up diagram and I explain to you a problem with view model unless you do it properly. I think it is probably funny if people are not aware of special live show and they come here and I am using weird fucking accent. Anyways, I answer with the accent this question. So we go to picture, I show you special picture. So this is what I want everybody to think about this. So this is how I want you imagine whole architecture of application. So you have like view. Is always the same view. Model view, view model is same as model view controller, is same as model view presenter. Always we have view is draw user interface. So other thing we have is decision maker. Why do we need decision maker on front end of architecture? Is because sometimes front end require logic. Sometimes you need to decide if this value is this, then color this thing this way. There is a way that people get around this by using data binding. I am not a big fan of data binding. It does work, but I prefer to actually use presenter to tell view what to do. So anyways, let's talk about this a little bit. So what is problem with view model? Well, if I think of like view model based on what most people use it for, most people use view model for two things. One of these things I like, one of these things I don't like. So first usage, which is how I use view model, is I say view model is like front end session data store, like this. And if I go back to little picture I'm drawing, little picture, you see front end data store. I actually use view model down in front end data store. I can show application code next week if you want. So I don't actually use view model as the decision maker. Why don't I? That's the other thing. Some people use view model like front end decision maker. Okay, let us think about this. So we have like two things that view model is doing. I don't like that. Some people use view model for both purpose at same time. So view model then become not only part of front-end architecture. Essentially, most people is using view model to be both controller, presenter, and also model. Two things. How come? So first problem I have when I start to learn model view model architecture, I say to myself, you know, I need like view controller. I need some kind of controller. Either view model does two things, which is not good, or I need to separate. So what I decide to do, let me show you how architecture I build right now. In nutshell, I basically build ModelViewPresenter plus view model. Now the way I use view model does not make decision. View model is not decision maker like this. Presenter is decision maker. It talk to view model. It read view model just like another part of model. So it's kind of basically model view presenter. Still VM is part of model, but I add in VM as like a front end data store, this one here. So I think it is very good to use view model in this way. Use it like front end data store. If you really want to, you can use view model also for decision maker, but then I ask you the question, now you have class which is doing two things. You are breaking separation of concerns. So I don't really, that is problem with view model. I forget actual questions, so now I go back. So Radek asked question like, open source project is having base presenter extend view model. What do I think about this? I think this is really bad. I would need to look at code and understand for myself, because maybe they just use names in funny way. But here is the thing, if someone use view model for storing data and for making decision, I don't like that. It's not separation of concerns. Is your application going to explode if you do that? No, it's just not the way I like to build application. So that is what I would think about this particular project. I don't like idea, especially of base presenter extend view model. That does not sound good at all to me. But you know, maybe it's work for some guy, so fair enough. Anyways, let us get back to chat. So I have request to speak in different accents, so like Burmese accent, and request to do also, what is other accent? I also have requests to do Indian accent. So listen, unfortunately, if we live in time where I feel comfortable making accent from people whom I'm not related, I would do this joke, but many people nowadays get very offended and upset about this kind of thing. So I can actually do Indian accent quite well, but because of color of my skin, some people not like it if I do Indian accent. So I not do Indian accent, and unfortunately, my friend, I not know how to do Burmese accent either. I did actually, if I may, so I have a lot of friends who are Filipino, and I used to work with this guy, so I won't try and do a Filipino accent. I'll just try and imitate this fellow who I worked with, and his name was Nestor, and he was Filipino, and he was a really pretty scary dude. Like, he had this intense, what the hell, bro? Come on, bro. No way. Like, he had this intense way of talking, and when he talked to you, he talked like this. Come on, bro. No way, bro. So that's the closest thing to a Southeast Asian accent I could ever come to, but anyways, sorry. Okay, the problem is I don't have like a good Indian accent. Like, it's kind of just a mishmash of Punjabi and Hindi. But I guess if I were to try and do, no, I can't, sorry, I can't even do the Indian accent right now because my mouth is I'm already used to talking in Slavic accent, and when you have to talk in Slavic accent, you have to like relax your jaw and talk like this. So I can't really get into flow of Indian accent right now. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't do it for you, but yeah. Anyways, so I can riff on this one a little bit. Okay, so Aswin asks, Ryan, where would you rate yourself as an Android developer? Can you develop an app like Instagram or Uber all by yourself? And how many years would one require to reach your level? So this will be a little bit speculative, but I'll try and just answer it pretty straight up. So for starters, where would I rate myself as an Android developer? I would, so if we were to, this is totally subjective, but if we were to have like some kind of rating system, maybe we could say like, so we have beginner, so this is like hello world. We have junior, so that'll be like you can build a calculator. Then we have, I don't know, intermediate, so we're talking something about like Instagram but smaller scale. And then we have like a senior developer, so that we're talking something like Instagram. So as far as Android development skills, I generally think of myself as an intermediate. So I have built applications that work with user bases. I've built like a Tinder clone and a couple other things. Like I'm about an intermediate developer, so I'm definitely way above building like a calculator application, that kind of thing. Right now I'm concerning myself with online, offline data persistence and stuff like that, which is getting almost into senior developer territory. But the reason why I don't consider myself a senior developer is, to me, so this is my opinion, a senior developer must have developed and maintained a large scale project. So by large scale I mean like large user base for a period of a few years. So I am really, so maybe some of my skills might be considered senior developer level, not all of them, certainly not. To me, I won't be a senior developer until I've basically worked on several medium to large scale applications. I've maintained them, I've refactored them, and also for me, one of the things keeping me from being a senior developer is it's something I'm working on, but I'm not so good at, like, say the native level of Android. So I only have a limited understanding of C. And that's actually something that I want to work on as soon as I can. I just have to I'm focusing 100% on learning Kotlin right now, so I just haven't had time to do that. But I would say a senior developer would also have to understand the underlying Unix framework of Android, like Android native type code, understand how to like optimize memory optimization at the native level, and I'm not quite there yet. If I were to like say my specialty is software architecture for sure. Oops. I understand that better than developers, some developers I've met who have a lot more experience than I do, but this is just not enough for me to consider myself like a senior developer. I need more time, basically. So the other part of the question, so can I develop an app like Instagram or Uber? Absolutely. I would have to use Firebase or Amazon Web Services. Like I wouldn't be writing my own cloud backend easily. I plan to do that eventually, but that's not a skill I currently have. But yeah, it's not actually, the difficult part about like Instagram or Uber is really just the fact that you're dealing with such an insanely large user base and all of these locality issues and all kinds of things like that. So I'm actually gonna back up what I said. Could I develop an app like Instagram or Uber? Yes. Would I be able to maintain all of that just insane big data type backend stuff? That would be pretty difficult for me. I'm sure I could do it if I studied really hard, but yeah. But all the rest of the application, yeah, I could definitely build that. So the final part of the question is, how many years would one require to reach your level? You know, I don't actually, here's the problem. So for the first 2 years of my career as an Android developer, almost the first 3 actually, I didn't actually get the chance to study more than about 25% of the amount that I would have liked to spend studying in that time frame. The reason why is I didn't go to school for this stuff because I couldn't afford it, and my whole time doing this thing, basically, I've been trying to support my lifestyle. I've been trying to make a living while learning Android by myself on the side. Particularly for the first 2 years of my development career, I had a lot of trouble focusing. So I could maybe get in like an hour or 2 a day if I was lucky. But I had long periods where I didn't study at all. I went through a really horrible time in 2016. 2016 was an awful year for me. I tore multiple back muscles. I was in a just insanely hilarious but stressful job. And so there was a period there where I barely studied at all. So what I'm trying to say here is like, I can't really, I started in 2014, if that gives you some idea. So I started with Android in summer 2014. So this will give you an idea when I started. If you can find the time, if you have the time to support yourself and study a lot, or if you find a way to support yourself and study longer, then you should expect to basically proceed faster than I have. I mean, we're coming up to a little over 4 years, and you know, I'm not super upset with where I'm at, but I'm aware of the fact that it's only in the past year and a half that I've really been able to actually code almost every day. So I'm very thankful for that opportunity. But yeah, that's kind of my answer there. So maybe if you want to, I would say you can be like an intermediate developer if you study hard for about maybe 2 years. I have a friend who is basically an intermediate Android developer in the span of about 8 months. I talk about him a lot, and he's an awesome dude, Darrell Bitsi. But that guy learns faster than any human being I've ever met. So I don't expect anyone to get done what he did. But I would say you're going to be a junior probably for about the first year or 2. You're probably going to be like an intermediate for years 2 to 4. And then maybe after 4 years, you might be a senior developer. I'm almost getting into senior developer territory, but I'm definitely not going to call myself a senior developer because I'm not. Not at this point. Aswin mentions or asks if I don't have any Punjabi friends. I actually have a couple East Indian friends. So where I come from, Canada, we're very multicultural. So I have friends of all different ethnic backgrounds, and it's really wonderful. I do have one. I worked with a couple of Punjabi guys, and they're I don't know what it is about Punjabis, but they're often very big people. Like I'm a big-ish guy, and you know, I was about the same size as these guys, except they were heavier. I do have some Punjabi friends. I still don't think I can do a Punjabi. I don't know if this is a Punjabi accent or not. No, that's not really a good. I'm just gonna not try and do that. Oh, I love this question. This is my favorite question of all time. Oops. Just make sure. Okay, I actually spelled that right. Do I have a degree? This is my favorite question. Does Ryan have a degree? Let me tell you. Some of you may have noticed in the thumbnail for this live stream that I have this little thing written in there, PhD in dishwashing. So most of you people might think, oh, Ryan's just being silly about that. And yeah, I am being silly about that, but I have no degrees. I dropped out after one semester of college in 2013. So I have no degrees, and in that span, I spent most of my time working in kitchens alongside learning computing myself. So I actually, the only thing I will claim to have like a PhD level knowledge in is being a professional dishwasher. Because I tell you, I'm probably one of the best dishwashers in Canada. That's one thing I will be very arrogant about. I can work harder than most people. We used to work with like this giant conveyor, and so I'd be standing at the end of this conveyor catching dishes frantically. You people probably think when I say dishwashing, I mean like in a sink. No, I'm talking like an industrial dishwasher the size of a room. That's what I'm used to. I used to have a photo. Let me see if I still got that photo. I snapped a selfie before I quit my last kitchen job, which will hopefully be the last kitchen job I ever have to work. I might not have it on my phone, so we'll see. And I'm not actually sure if you'll be able to see it. Yeah, okay, hopefully you guys can kind of see that. So behind me is an industrial conveyor dishwasher. That's me. And that is what I am qualified to do. I am a very working class individual. I come from kind of a lower middle class background, and I couldn't afford school, so I didn't go. Yeah, I could have gotten student loans, but coming from a family which on one level had a history of debt, I decided that putting myself in like $20,000 of debt or whatever it would take to get my degree was not a good option. Now, for some people that works out because they get a good job, but for me, I don't actually want to work for a company. There is like one or two companies that I would work for if they did offer me a job, but for the most part, the last Android proper job that wasn't contracting work that I did, I spent a week at a local startup, and I was going to get hired as a junior developer. And it was a really funny experience because in terms of like architecture and backend skills, I was better than their lead Android developer. I don't want to say any, the guy was super nice though, their lead Android developer, and I like the guy and I don't have anything bad to say about him. He was awesome. But as far as the company itself, just spending a week in an IT office setting and dealing with a project manager who was like a I'm not going to be mean, but he was like a short, fat version of me. And right off the bat, I could tell that I was just setting off his insecurity. Because like the first hour I was there, the owners of this company told me to just work on my own projects. And this guy like rolls up, grabs a chair, swings it around and sits right beside me with like the back of the chair facing me. And then he starts like telling me what I'm going to be working on. And then later on I found out that he hadn't been told to do that, and he had no idea what I was supposed to be doing. It was just an insecure individual trying to assert their dominance as a project manager. And when I had that experience, I thought to myself, you know what? This is exactly the same bullshit that I deal with in kitchens, construction sites, sales floors, UPS delivery halls, all of the different places that I've worked, dining rooms. I've done all kinds of different shitty jobs. And the thing I always run into is people like that. So then I made the decision, I don't actually want to work with a large group of people. I don't want to work in a company. I want to maybe work with a couple people, but for the most part, I want to be my own boss. So I don't know why I decided to go on that little rambly tangent, but I did. I have no degree. Second semester dropout. I have one programming class under my belt, Introductory Java 2013. And that is my post-secondary experience as a developer, or a computer scientist, or whatever. Anyways. All right, I'm going to piece out pretty quick here, so maybe I'll just do one more question. All right. Sorry, I'm just trying to be a bit selective with the questions. So Andev asks, what do I think a junior developer should know to successfully pass an interview? So Andev, I did a video, hopefully I can remember what it was called. I think it was called like How to Learn Faster and Get Hired Sooner. And in that video, I talked a little bit about what I think a junior developer needs to do to get hired. I also have a video called Roadmap for Junior Developers, which gives a basic idea of the kinds of APIs you're going to want to be learning. Now, the problem is that because Android and development is just such a shifting landscape, already that older video is a bit outdated because architecture components was like barely out or something like that. But I've got a couple of videos on my channel which might help you, so maybe have a look. What else have we got? So Aswin kind of mentions, please try going for some interviews in the big five like Google or Facebook, and mentions that there are some things I complain about my life being difficult, and Aswin, the feeling I get from this message is that Aswin is a bit concerned about that and wants me to go do some interviews on the side. So I'm very happy to say, Aswin, that basically as of this summer, I have quit my day jobs, and for the time being, I'm able to support myself with my own work. So here's the thing. So yeah, my life is not easy right now. Like, I have very big to-do lists that I have to do every day. And unfortunately, I do complain about that from time to time. And I do talk about difficult things that I deal with in life. But I don't want anyone to kind of mistake why I'm choosing to do what I do. Because I'm sure a lot of people wonder, like, why don't I work for a company? My personal goal is not to work for anyone. I actually just really enjoy teaching people. I really enjoy trying to build the best quality applications I can build on my own terms. And I kind of look at all the other stuff that would come along with getting hired from a company as a whole bunch of variables I don't like to deal with. So I'm very happy to say that
I'm very happy right now. I work really damn hard. I work a lot harder than I used to. But I actually really enjoy it because everything I do day to day, it's like 2 hours of writing, 2 hours of video recording, 2 hours of studying, 2 hours of coding. Rinse, repeat, almost every day. I don't really take days off very often. I love doing that because it's all my work and it's what I want to do. So I do very much appreciate the concern. I don't want people to think that I want sympathy or that I'm trying to say that my life is exceptionally hard. I've grown up around people and worked with people who have gone through horrible things in life. Like, I had this one manager who was a Cambodian guy, and he actually grew up in a refugee camp during the Khmer Rouge. What would you call that? The reign and just like post-Vietnam War stuff. And so to hear stories of what people like that went through, I don't have anything really hard in my life, things that are actually really difficult. I put a lot of pressure on myself, but I am quite happy. I feel very lucky to be doing what I'm doing. And please don't, when I talk about the negative stuff, it's just me trying to communicate to people that it's not easy for anyone. When I used to like learn from my own personal idols, I used to have this idea in my head that these people never struggle, never have difficulty, every day is perfect for them, and they're always in a good mood, and they're just like absolute amazing people. And what I realized after a while is that basically every human being to some degree deals with a whole bunch of bullshit. And the most important thing is just being a person who can deal with the negative stuff in life effectively. So when I talk about the negative things in my life, I'm really just trying to hopefully communicate my experiences in sometimes overcoming these things. But like I say, I'm a human being as well. I do actually have anger management problems. So that definitely, when I get really underslept, my fuse gets really short and I get pretty negative. And that definitely spills over in some of my videos. But all I'm trying to say is, for the most part, I'm a really happy guy most of the time. So thank you very much for your concern. There are a couple of places, if they sent me a job offer, I would join. But I'm not actively looking for anything. Okay. Anyways, someone asked if I was in House of Cards, so I'm trying to think, what character in House of Cards do you think I look like? Because I have watched that show. Are you talking about the British one or the American one? Anyways, well, that's going to be it for today's show, so thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully the accent tag was at least a little bit funny and not too stupid, but I just wanted to take today to kind of like try to have some fun, try to just focus on entertaining people, because life has been very serious for me lately, and so I just wanted to take some time to just chill out and have a good time. Anyways, I'm going to ponder on which character from House of Cards that Beva thinks I look like. But that is basically it for rest of show. So, to everyone, I don't actually drink that much these days, but thank you so much for joining me for a special Gopnik edition of Livestream Q&A, where I dress up like Eastern European scumbag and try to do my best to talk like Eastern European scumbag, and hopefully is a little bit entertaining. And with that, I am going to go have breakfast, and it's going to be a good day. So thank you so much for watching. Spasibo, I hope that's thank you and not please. I can't actually remember. Dziękuję is Polish, dziękuję. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. And oh yeah, before I go, just really quickly, I think you'll want to tune in for tomorrow's live coding episode, because I've got some really, really cool stuff to demonstrate with Kotlin, ModelViewPresenter, and Recycler View. Hopefully it'll be ready, but, you know, c'est la vie. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.